Okay, the sugya we're about to learn is a very famous sugya. The word sugya means area of study, right? That's what the word sugya means. It means a topic. And the topic for tonight, and for as long as it takes to go through it, maybe a few nights, I can't promise we'll keep it to Tuesday nights, but we'll certainly, obviously we're beginning on a Tuesday night, okay? So the topic for tonight is this famous sugya, a famous area of Talmud study called Ani HaMahapich B'Charara. So just to give you a little bit of a preview of the discussion, and then before I even do that, I just want to mention that Gemara learning is not meant to be a monologue, meant to be a conversation. So if you have any comments, any questions, don't hesitate to jump right in, okay? The only question that's not a good question in Gemara, it starts with what if, or let's say. Now, those aren't always bad questions or not such great questions, but they're usually not strong questions. We're looking for questions that are about the structure of the Gemara itself, okay? That's what we're looking for. And let's see. Oh, Jerry's back, okay?
Yeah.
That's what we're looking for. We're looking for questions that are like related to the structure of the Talmud itself, rather than it being something that's kind of like a side point, right? We're not interested in side points. We want to stay on topic as much as possible. Okay? So the link that I shared with you via the chat, I'll give you one more time because we have some new people. We're looking at that Gemara. I guess I will share my screen because I'll be able to show you exactly which words I'm looking at in the Gemara in a much more significant way, and I think that'll be helpful. So if you look at the top of the page, it says 58b, Ha'ish Mekadesh, Perek Sheni, Kiddushin, Nunchet with two dots. Two dots means side two. Every daf in Gemara, every page in Gemara has two sides. Every Masechta in Shas, which means every volume of Talmud, begins with daf bet, with page 2. Okay, perhaps that's because Torah has no beginning, right? You don't start from page 1, you start from page 2 because every volume is connected one with the other. And here we have, and this page here is page 58, and the two dots or the B indicates the second side of the folio, the second side of the page. So the top of the page says Aish Mekadesh, which is the name for Perek Sheni, the second chapter, and the name of the Masechta is Kiddushin. Kiddushin in general deals with laws of marriage. Okay, in Shisha Siddur Mishnah, which in the 6 orders of Mishnah, we have one which deals with the laws that are related to relationships between men and women. So the laws of divorce, the laws of marriage, the laws of ketubah, the laws of yibum, or the levirate marriage, all of that is included in Seder Nashim, which is the order of Mishnah that's dedicated to the laws that govern relationships between wives and between women and men, or husbands and wives. Okay, the third perek is what we're looking at. So it's the end of the second perek. Hadron Alacha Ish Mekadesh is what it says here between the 2 chapters in that big area there. I'll show you what I mean. Some of you are brand new to Gemara. Some of you are more experienced in Gemara. We'll try to make sure that we're talking to everybody. So this sentence says, Hadron Allah Cha'ish Mekadesh, which means we'll return to you, the man who married, which is the name of the 2nd chapter. Omer L'Chavero, this is the beginning of the 3rd chapter. Okay? Now, because it's the opening of the perek, you're not going to see, sometimes you'll see this thing over here. Let me show you this here. You'll see something that looks like this: Mem, Taf, Nun, Yud with a dash, which means Matnisin. So that's a Mishnah. Okay? So that's essentially what is this? This is a Mishnah. Okay? And the name of the perek is Omer L'Chavero. Matnitin means our Mishnah. And whenever the Gemara, let me show you this over here. Here, the Gemara says Gimel Mem, which indicates it's the opening of the Gemara. Okay, the Masnisin is the opening of the Mishnah. Whoops, hold on. Okay, the Masnisin is the opening of the Mishnah, and this Mishnah is the opening of the third parak of Kiddushin, and that's just by way of introduction to what it is that we're looking at over here. Okay. Any questions so far? I haven't really said much yet. Okay, so let's take a look at the case. Often, not always, but often Mishnayos deal with cases. The Mishnah is the set of lecture notes, if you will, on the oral Torah written down, codified by Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, Judah the Prince, who was one of the last of the Tanoim, one of the last of the generation of rabbis referred to as Tanoim. And our Mishnah is, as I mentioned before, the beginning of the third chapter of Maseches Kiddushin. Okay, so with no further ado, let's dive right in. There's a very interesting case over here. It's a very disturbing case. Well, and what doesn't compare to last night's disturbing case with the guy who had an affair with his mother-in-law. But if those of you that were here last night got to hear that, those of you that want to hear it will have to look at the website. Okay. Somebody says to his friend, say, go out. And I'll go ahead and underline while I read, just to give you a sense of how far, where we are. Say,
Rabbi,
yes.
the image on the screen is from in the second parak. It's not what you're reading, for some reason. It's a little confusing.
Well, go to the bottom of the page.
Yeah, I have it in my Kiddushin parak Shlishi, but you have on the screen parak Sheni.
The top of the page says parak Sheni, but go down to the bottom of the Amud. What does it say?
Scroll down, Barry.
Okay, well, I have it. It's just that it's a little confusing on the screen itself. Okay, all right, fine.
You have to scroll down, I think. Okay? So, Ha'omer lechavero, somebody says to his friend, say, go out. The Kadesh li, Isha plonit. And go out for me and marry a particular woman. Plonit is like Ploni. It means a particular woman. It doesn't identify her name. It doesn't matter what her name is. It's just a story, okay? So let's give them some names, okay? Let's give you some text here, okay? So there's a guy named Bob, okay? Bob appoints, give me a name here, people.
It's Itzik.
Yitzi, okay. Itzik? Okay. Itzik, okay. Bob appoints Itzik as an agent, okay? Now, an agent. In Hebrew, the word agent is shaliach. Okay? That's an important word to remember. I'd like you to remember that word because we're going to be using that word. The concept of shlichut is agency. Okay? Shlichut is agency or power of attorney. Who can explain for me what that means?
What?
What is it? Clark, can you tell us what does it mean to have power of attorney?
To have authorization to conduct business on behalf of and in the name of someone else.
Correct. So let's say I appoint you power of attorney, and you file something on my behalf. So you're acting on my behalf, and it's binding on me. Is that correct?
That's right. I could also, with a general power of attorney, withdraw money from your bank account.
Oh, yeah, for sure. But in this case, we're going to limit the power of attorney a little bit to you can only do what I'm asking you to do. There is
the word representative might be better than agent. You don't think?
Yeah, representative is also a good word. Okay. There is a concept of power of attorney called apotropos, which is probably a Greek word. So that an apotropos, which is what Clark is describing, which is where, let's say you have orphans who are children and the court appoints an adult to take care of their affairs. So there, the adult, he has the right to go to their bank account, even withdraw money, right? That's an apotropos. But shlichus basically means I appoint somebody as my representative. Representative might be a better word than agent. We'll go with it, okay? It's something like that, okay? Representative, okay. Now the representative acts on my behalf. So in our case, what did I do? Bob appointed Itzik as an agent, a shliach, representative, okay? So what did Bob ask Itzik to do?
And my wife.
To go to a particular place. Doesn't say that, right? He says to go to a woman. Can we have her name? What's her name? Sharon, give us a name, a random name. Okay? I didn't hear what you said. Okay, it's not unmuting you. Okay, a woman. We'll call her Leah.
Louise.
Louise. Okay. I hope Louise is Jewish and not Italian. Okay? All right. So Bob asks Yitzchak to go to a woman named Louise and ask Louise to marry Bob. Now, how's that possible? Who can explain that to me? What's the problem with this case? It seems a little bit odd, right? We don't really do this nowadays, do we?
But that's what Abraham did with Eliezer, right?
That's true, 100%, right? Eliezer gave money to, that's a very good example. Eliezer gave money to Rivka, and that acted as the Kiddushin money, okay? So now, how do we get married nowadays? What does a chatan or a chas and a groom generally give to a kala?
A ring.
A ring, exactly, a ring, good. What is that ring? That ring represents money. It's called, in Hebrew, the term is shava kesef. It represents money. You know how the rabbi turns to the witnesses and he says, is it a pruta? They said, yes, it's a pruta. In other words, does it have some minimal value at least? The answer, of course, is yes. Gold rings generally have more than minimal value. Okay, so in this case over here, we generally ask, when we get married, when I got married to my wife in Toronto in 2004, I actually went to Toronto and I asked her to marry me under the chuppah. I didn't ask my friend to go on my behalf, but technically I could have. Now, my wife probably would have said no had I done that, right? Or she should have said no if I would have done that. But technically speaking, marriage is a halachic agreement that binds a man and a woman to each other. And that agreement can take place with the transfer of money or the value of money or a document, okay? The Gemara says there are three ways of doing Kiddushin. That's the opening Mishnah in Kiddushin. Kesef, shtar, and bia. Kesef is money, shtar is a document, and bia is physical intimacy between husband and wife. That is also a way of marrying a woman. However, that you cannot have an agent do for you. An agent cannot be intimate with one's wife on his behalf. That would be impossible. Okay, that's not allowed. But the agent could give the shtar, the document, or the money to the recipient, to the woman, and she accepts it. So it's binding. And the difference is going to be, as we'll soon see at the end of the Mishnah here, that she is considered married to Bob. So now she cannot get married to Itzik or to anybody else. Okay, everyone follow the case? It's pretty straightforward. Okay, this is a pretty straightforward sort of a case. So now the Mishnah says like this. So let's review. Someone says to his friend, say, go out. The Kaddish li isha plonis. Go and marry a particular woman. We called her Louise. On my behalf, for me, marry her to me. I don't want you to marry her, but marry her to me. V'halach. And so Itzik went. And what did he do? Itzik, he's like, oh my gosh, this woman is the most incredible woman I ever met in my life.
Reader himself.
Right? He's the most incredible woman I ever met in my life. Not only is she beautiful, not only does she come from a family that's supportive, her family has good boundaries, and she's whatever, educated and this and that, and she plays music and I don't know, whatever else he was looking for in his life that he hadn't found until that point. And so now Itzik goes, and what does he do? V'halach, he went. Kiddush la'atzmo, and he married her himself. So I guess Bob appointed the wrong agent, didn't he? He appointed the wrong representative because Itzik rejected his status as representative and acted on his own behalf.
Did you take his money too?
What do you think? Do you think that, well, if he used Bob's money, it might get complicated, but he used his own money. Okay, what do you guys think? Do you think that the marriage is binding or not binding?
Well,
Yes.
not if he had a contract with Bob. Although, wait, no. He hasn't decided which woman. So because there's no definition of which woman specifically, what's his name, Itzik, could claim, well, that wasn't the woman that I went to get for you. I just happened to get married in the meantime.
No, that's not it. That's not it.
He did say Isha Plonis. He did say a particular woman.
He did say, it is particular. Okay.
He did say Isha Plonis. What do you say, Barry, without reading?
So he's married, it says, it's specifically, explicitly, he's married to the second person. She's married to the second person. Okay,
you're right. And Barry, you read Hebrew, and so you got the answer correct. The next line says, Mekudeshes L'Sheni, He is married to the second person, but give me the rationale, Barry. Why should he be married to the second? Why should she be married to the second guy?
You mean Itzik?
Yeah, the Mishnah says he is married to she.
Well, he did the kedushin to her.
Yeah, it's very simple. Who married? Whose hand did she accept in marriage? She accepted Itzik. She didn't even know that Itzik represented Bob or was going to represent Bob. She may or may not know that, but that's not germane. That's not relevant. She knows that Itzik says, "Will you marry me?" She says yes. So obviously, she's married to Itzik. Okay. So that's really the only part of the Mishnah that we really need. But now we're going to take a look at the Gemara. Does everyone follow the case in the Mishnah? The case in the Mishnah is pretty straightforward. What do you guys make of Itzik? Good guy or a bad guy?
He's a bad guy. Of course he's a bad guy.
To oversimplify things, right?
He's not doing what he's supposed to do.
Okay. What do you say, Clark?
I'm glad I didn't use him.
What do you say?
He's not trustworthy at all.
What do you say, Elisheva? Miriam LAX? Not Lax. I don't know who you are, but what do you guys say?
Yeah, it doesn't seem that he behaved in an upfront way.
That's correct.
He's looking after himself.
Okay, let's take a look at the Gemara. Ha'omer lechavero. So I'll show you where I'm reading. Okay, this is the opening of the Gemara here, okay? Ha'omer lechavero. Somebody says to his friend, say, go out, v'kadesh, and marry. That's pretty much a quote from our Mishnah, right? It's the same 4 words. Ha'omer lechavero, say v'kadesh. So it's an abbreviated way of saying the whole Mishnah. Tana teaches the Tana, and probably a Braita here. Masha'asa asui. What's done is done. Ella shenahag bo minhag ramaut. But what he has done is considered to be minhag ramaut. What does that mean, minhag ramaut?
Underhand.
Say, go ahead, Jerry. What did you say?
Underhand or.
Yeah. This particular translation here says it's a reference to a cheater. Getting Ellie back to sleep.
Yeah.
A reference to a cheater. A ramai is somebody who is a deceitful person, somebody that acts with deceit. That's a ramai. Ramaut is a minhag ramaut is to act in a deceitful manner, in a cheating manner, in an underhanded manner. Okay? So that's the opening of the Gemara. Can you think of any cases nowadays where this might apply? I'm going to stop the share here for a moment. But can anybody think of a case nowadays that will? I'm going to look at everybody's faces here together. What do you guys say? Can you think of a case nowadays where this kind of a thing applies? Let's see if we can extrapolate from the case of the Mishnah to another case where you appoint a power of attorney, an agent, a representative to act on your behalf, but instead he acts on his own behalf. Can you think of a similar kind of a case outside of where you're appointing someone to go marry somebody?
Well, you could appoint somebody to go buy you something, go to an auction, and when he finds that the whatever is selling at a very good price, he buys it himself.
Exactly. So is that legal?
Would say not.
Is
I
it
would say
legal
not.
to do so?
No.
Who his attorney is.
Very funny. Or his accountant. Would you say, Barry, so I mean, Clark is the only attorney on tonight, I think, right? Unless Miriam Lex is an attorney, I don't know her. Is it legal?
He's stealing, right?
Is he stealing? Who he's paid for it? A theft requires a victim. Who's the victim?
But if he didn't use the money, then he's not a thief.
Well, if I use your money to buy something.
No, he'll return the money. He'll use his own money. Okay. Is there a victim in the story here? Is there somebody from whom money has been stolen? I don't think so.
He's usurped the opportunity that his backer had.
Right. So has he acted legally? Does it legally belong to the buyer?
Well,
letter of the law.
legally, there'd be no question as between the seller and the shaliach. The shaliach owns it; he paid for it.
Right.
The only question would be whether he wouldn't be called the beneficial owner on behalf of his backer.
Why would he be called the beneficial owner on behalf of the backer? He didn't use the backer's money, and he basically decided to drop the backer.
Well, in a way, it would depend on his relationship.
Explain.
But Rabbi, the question is, does the Mishnah and the Gemara, does it specifically focus on the issue of the money, or does it focus on the contract, trust?
It's actually, well,
because
the Gemara is actually focused on the behavior of the representative.
Because you asked if there was a situation today. Well, there could be a situation where a friend tells another friend, I intend to marry that woman.
Uh-huh.
And then his friend goes behind his back and marries. And I wonder if the Gemara actually, continues this whole discussion and just talks about that as well.
We will get to a very similar case to that. I'm focused. See, Barry, you may not approve of the behavior of the shliach, but from a certain very black and white kind of perspective, he's acting legally. But I would change the question, say, is he acting ethically? And I think obviously the answer is
no.
Exactly.
No, I'm just saying if A gives B money to buy something,
right,
and then B uses that money to buy something for himself.
Well, then that would make him a ganav, but that's not.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm thinking of.
Right, but that's not the case in our Gemara. The case in our Gemara.
I understand. I'm wondering about that. I understand.
Yeah, in that case, he would be a thief, right?
Let's just put it this way: he's not a good friend.
Right, he's not a good friend. That's for sure, Sharon. So he is acting unethically, no question. And that's what's fascinating to me about our Gemara. Basically, is it's a case of where the Mishnah is dealing with the ethics of the behavior and not the legalities of the behavior. The legalities of the behavior are pretty straightforward, but the ethics of the behavior are what the Mishnah is telling us, or the Braita is teaching us about the Mishnah, where it's just considered to be minhag rab ma'ut, where he's acting in a way that is deceitful, and therefore it's not ethical. Basically, that's the way the Gemara is teaching that it's not ethical, and is wrong. Later, we'll see that the Gemara actually calls such a person a rasha, a wicked person. Okay, we'll see that later.
Absolutely.
Okay.
But Rabbi, couldn't you also argue that when you're talking about the victim, once the second person, the shaliach, actually commits to the lady, to the woman, then she would be the victim if that were to be reversed, if preference were given to the contract he had with the first guy. So, there are two potential victims. One is the first guy, because the shaliach betrayed him. Yeah. And the second potential victim is if the guy promised the woman and then that is reversed. He's not allowed to do it. I think I've lost everybody.
You lost me, but
okay.
It changes the scenario a little bit. So let me throw a scenario at you, okay? And no one here that I know does plays in the stock market all that much, okay? I mean, I have no idea if you do or if you don't, but no one here is a broker. Imagine, and I actually asked one of my students. So one of my students came up with a great example. He's a kid and he loves sports. So you want to get tickets to the game of your choice. For Barry, it might be, Cal State Long Beach's baseball team. I don't know, right? But you want to or for Clark, it might be the California Bears football team. But you want to get tickets to a particular game, and you ask your friend to get you the tickets for the game, and then he realizes there's only 2 tickets left, and he buys them for himself. Is that ethical behavior?
No.
That's horrible.
It's the same. It's pretty much. You can argue it's the same case
It's the
over here.
same thing.
Exactly. Now, what about the example I thought of? This particular boy, his father runs 2 separate hedge funds, I think. So imagine you're running a hedge fund and an IPO becomes available, and so one of your clients does all the research and gives you, I don't know, $50,000 to go buy shares in this IPO. Now, there's a limited amount of shares that you can buy, but then you, as the manager of the hedge fund, realize, oh my gosh, this is an amazing opportunity, and so you spend your own money. Okay, if you spend his money, it's embezzlement. You're going to go to jail. But if you spend your own money on that IPO and you lock him out of it, so that would be a very similar example where you were someone's representative, but rather than being true to your agency, you went ahead and acted on your own behalf.
Right.
So there's a lot of examples that are relevant nowadays outside of the Mishnah's example of marriage. Does this make sense, everybody?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so that's the starting point of the sugya. So you see that in this sugya, in this section of Talmud, the issue that's being discussed essentially is ethical behavior, or the lack thereof. Okay, any questions before we go further? We're going to go ahead and look at the next page. I'm going to share with you if you go to the right side of your page and you click on 58b, the down arrow, it'll bring you to the next page. I'll also share it with you in the chat in case that doesn't work for you. So we're going to look at page 59a, or Nun Tes Amud Aleph. Okay. Okay, here we go. I'm going to skip a little bit down to where it becomes a little bit more relevant. Okay. There are some technical points that we're not going to look at, that if anyone wants to look at, I'm happy to do it with you a different time, okay? We're going to go down here, Barry, probably around line 9 or 10 or so. We're going to look at this case over here. Okay. So we start with this word here, Ravin. That's the first word. And this is the last word, Mekadesh. Okay, that's what we're looking at over here. Okay. Ravin Chasida. So we don't know much about Ravin Chasida. It sounds like he's a good person. His name is Rabbi Chassid, essentially. Okay. I actually had a Rebbe in Yeshiva. His name was Rav Chassid. Okay. So Ravin Chasida Ozil, he went Likidushe Le, to marry for him. Itza is Aramaic for an Isha. So he went to go marry a woman, Libre, for his own son. Okay? So what's the case? Ravin Chasida was his son's shaliach to go marry a particular woman for his son. And she would have been married to whom? The son. Instead, he got there and he did something very strange. Kiddush al-nafshe. He married her himself. Kiddush al-nafshe. He married her himself. Is that okay, guys?
No.
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 The Gemara asks, Tanya, didn't we learn in the Brisa, Masha asa asui, what's done is done, Ela shenag ba minhag amos, but it's acting unethically. So that's a Gemara. That's a question. Okay? That's a question. And the Gemara says, okay, that's a question.
Lo yavo.
So the Gemara says, Lo Yahavuha Nihile. They did not want to give her to him. Look at the Rashi here. Rashi says, whoops, hold on. Rashi says, Lo Yahavuha Nihile.
Lo Ratsuli. No.
So what does that mean? Didn't do that one very well. Hold on. Let's use a voxel either. Rashi says, Lo Yahavuha Nihile. We'll go look at 2 Rashis here. The first one first. Lo Ratzu Litna Litzarech Bino. They did not want to give her for the needs of his son. In other words, in English, She did not agree to marry the son. Okay? Does that change things? Let's stop there for a moment. So Rabban Chasida, let's review. Rabban Chasida, he went as an agent, as a representative of his son to marry a particular girl to his son. Her family, okay, like Rivka's family, was reluctant, and then they were refused. They said, no, we don't want her to marry your son. What did he do? He married her himself. Ethical or unethical?
It's
What do you think?
unethical.
Well, change the complete, and it relates to the previous situation as well.
Okay, hold on. Let's take a vote. If you think he acted ethically, raise your hand. Okay. Barry, what do you think?
No.
I say no, but the family didn't allow it. So he was up over a barrel. He didn't have a choice. I mean,
He probably got a wife but lost a son, Rabbi.
Okay. So
Right?
it wasn't. Rashi explains that it wasn't her decision.
right.
And it wasn't his decision either, because her family didn't allow her to marry his son.
Right. So
So
in other words, you can argue very easily that the agency, the shlichus, is batal, is gone. It doesn't exist anymore. Do you agree?
Right.
Yeah.
So if the agency is gone, so then he is acting ethically. But let's take a look here at what the Gemara asks. The Gemara asks, and I'll underline it for you. Iboyele leodue. He should have let his son know. The Gemara asks, he should have let his son know. Rashi explains, Umakshinan, we ask, Iboyele leodue, he should let his son know.
Uh-huh.
Why? Lahotzi atzmo, to remove himself min hagramaos, from unethical behavior.
Right.
In other words, he would look bad. You agree? It doesn't smell right. It looks bad, even though technically, if you're just looking at the black and white of it, he didn't do anything wrong because he couldn't marry her to his son, but he should have been above suspicion. He should have, like, spirit of the law, he should have let his son know, to remove himself from that which appeared to be unethical.
Right.
So that's the Gemara's question. So the Gemara says, how could he have done it? He could, okay, so you want to say that he wasn't totally unethical? Yeah, but but at the end of the day, it looks to be unethical. The Gemara answers, Savar, he thought, Adahachi v'hachi, that in the meantime, Asa ina shachrina, another person would come, Mekadesh la, would marry her. To give you a little bit of background, there is a Gemara that says that if you identify a woman that you want to marry, you should not delay in asking her for her hand in marriage and her father, because Shema yikadmena acher. Maybe somebody else will come along and ask her before you do. Okay. You ever heard of such a phenomenon? Don't delay in asking a particular girl for their hand in marriage, because somebody else. But Jerry, you asked me about this before, didn't you? You brought up the case before. Somebody else will come along and marry her first, right?
Right.
Right. Shema yikad menacher. There is a concept in Shas like that, in the Talmud like that. That if you identify somebody you want to marry, you think it's a good idea, don't push it off because someone else will marry her before you do. And that makes a lot of sense. Anybody that you identify as someone that is a prime person for you to marry, probably you're not the only one that wants to think so, right? Probably other people would want to marry her as well. So the Gemara says that why did Rabban Chasida marry her right away and not go home and tell his son and then come back and marry her? Savar, he thought that in the meantime, somebody else would
get her.
marry her.
Somebody else would get her.
So here you have sort of a conflict. Like you said before, he's kind of in a bind. On the one hand, he appears, at least in spirit of the law, if you will, he appears to act a little bit deceitfully. Right? He appears to abandon his agency, even though he didn't, but it might appear that way. And he should remove himself and be above suspicion. In fact, the Talmud tells us, that a person should be, I'm going to stop sharing for a moment, a person should be above reproach. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing for a second. I'm going to look it up for you here. The pasuk says, I'll tell you exactly where it is in a moment. Here we go. So this pasuk is in in Bamidbar 32:22. Okay. The Rambam writes over there. The Talmud teaches that. Just shared with you without looking up the Rambam inside. I can't find the Rambam quickly, but the Rambam teaches from that pasuk we learn. From that pasuk we learn that a person who is, let's give an example. The Rambam gives an example. He says, let's say you have two Gabbai Tzedakah. A Gabbai Tzedakah is a person who is appointed to collect tzedakah and distribute it. It's a middleman. People you don't know who is considered to be a person that's worthy of receiving the tzedakah. And the Gabbai knows who all the poor people are that need to have tzedakah so that they have meals for the day. The Gabbai tzedakah's job is to go to the wealthy, redistribute their wealth to people that need it. Okay, people that give tzedakah, not against their will, obviously. Okay, not communism, but people to take the money that's given to tzedakah and redistribute it to those who are in need. If you have two Gabbai tzedakah going together, they need to always be within sight of each other. Why? Because otherwise they're acting suspiciously. Says the Rambam, we learn from this pasuk, v'yisim nekim, you should be clean, be above reproach, act in a way that is above reproach. Okay? If you talk to people that collect money, they'll tell you which pocket belongs to tzedakah. They never put their own money in it. And if they did, they just make an automatic donation because they know that they have to designate a particular pocket for tzedakah because otherwise they end up mixing up the funds. So it says the Gemara, and by the way, the Rambam there also writes about making change. You're allowed to make change from the tzedakah money with your money, going back and forth. You need to be above reproach. You need to be above suspicion. The Yisim Nekiyim Hashem Yisrael. So there is a concept like that. To not only not do the wrong thing, but not to have to give off the appearance of doing the wrong thing. Ravin Chasida in our Gemara over here, what did he do? He was appointed essentially as an agent by his son to marry a particular woman. He went to the woman's house in her town, and her family refused to allow her to marry the son. And he said, okay, so my shlichus is batal. That means I can no longer act as an agent. Let me think, can I marry her myself? On the one hand, I want to go home and tell my son that he was not allowed to marry her. But I would like to marry her myself. On the other hand, if I do that, I might lose my chance to marry her because maybe they'll have a change of heart. Maybe somebody else will marry her. So now he's in a bind. He's stuck. So what should he do? And so he went ahead and he married her. But the Gemara's question of, but the Gemara still seems to be bothered, that it does appear, give off the appearance of acting inappropriately, unethically, and that's why the Gemara is bothered, and the Gemara comes on to an answer. But the idea being that this concept of it's not just a menach hasidut, it's not just a good or a right or a just thing to do, but it's real, and the person has to be very, very cautious to not even give off the appearance of being unethical. I think that's what comes out of this Gemara. Okay, that's what comes out of this Gemara. So here we have a Mishnah. And we have a Gemara that both deal with the ethics of a person's behavior, not the legalities. Legally, in the case of the Mishnah, the Shliach, in our case we call him Itzik, would be married to Louise. He married her, she accepted. But he acted in a way that was minagra ma'ut, unethically, in a way that's cheating, underhandedly, like Jerry said. And that is not okay. And that's what the Gemara says over here. How could Rabban Chasida have married the girl when there was the son who wanted to marry her? And the Gemara has to explain, well, he had some sort of justification, but yeah, it wasn't ideal. That's what really comes out from the Gemara. Okay? So next time we learn this particular Gemara, we'll talk much more detailed in terms of what kind of case are we discussing when it comes to business, not just marriage. Does it always apply? Does it sometimes apply? Are there limitations? And we'll continue with this next time we meet. Okay? Greg, I know you just came on. I'm happy. I'll share the recording with you so you can catch up. But I find this Gemara fascinating, and the lawyers amongst us will be able to share with us maybe cases where it actually is very relevant nowadays, beyond the cases that we gave of buying stocks or tickets to a game or something like that. But I think that you see from the Gemara that not only is the Gemara sensitive to legal behavior, but the Gemara is very sensitive to ethical behavior as well.
Are you going to continue with Kedushin?
Yeah, I'm going to continue with this sugya for a while till we're done. Okay? All right, everybody. I wish you a wonderful night. If anybody has any questions, you're welcome to email me, call me, text me. Happy to listen to any questions and discuss it further. And with no further ado, I bid you adieu. I'm going to go help my wife put the kids to sleep, whoever's still up. Okay?
Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you.
It's my pleasure. Have a wonderful night, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Good night.